Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick and today we are joined by Dr. Ben Goertzel from SingularityNET. Guys, as we get into this fantastic interview, if you do find it useful, informative, maybe entertaining at times, hit the like button. We both really do appreciate that. Of course, if you are new, then make sure you do subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will not miss another update. Right, with all this said, done, and out of the way, let's jump on over and welcome Ben to the show and talk about everything artificial intelligence and blockchain. Hi and welcome to Cheeky Crypto. It is great to have you join us today and to talk everything SingularityNET and AGI. So would you mind telling us a little bit, about your background and talk us through what SingularityNET is for anyone who is new to the crypto space?
Yeah, so I'm Ben Goertzel. I'm a mathematician originally. I got a math PhD back in the 80s, but I've been working on AI technology and AI theories for 30 plus years now. I played a big role in launching the field of AI known as artificial general intelligence, which is summarized as AGI, but I've also worked on applied AI in all sorts of domains, including finance, medicine, national security, robotics, and so forth. I'm on the robotics side. I led the software team behind the 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗧𝗕 robot, which was the first robot citizen, the product of Hanson Robotics, where I was chief scientist at the time. And I've been interested in decentralized infrastructures for implementing AI for many decades. I wrote a book in 2001, maybe my fourth or fifth book. It was called Creating Internet Intelligence, where I was suggesting, a decentralized, strongly encrypted infrastructure for like a global AI brain. So when, the Ethereum smart contracts came out and the blockchain ecosystem seemed to be maturing, it was natural for me to jump into creating a blockchain-based decentralized AI infrastructure. And I co-founded SingularityNET in 2017. We created a utility token, which we call the AGI token. And the basic idea there is SingularityNET, it's just a collection of AI agents with no central controller. They can live anywhere on the internet. Anyone can code one, put one online. It can broadcast it there to the others using the SingularityNET protocol. AGI token is used for agents in the network to buy and sell AI services among each other, or for outsiders to buy services, AI services offered by agents on the network. So seems like 10 lifetimes ago, like 2017, when we started this thing, did an initial token sale December 2017. There's been obviously many ups and downs since that point, but we built a decentralized AI platform. We built some cool AI on there, and now going forward, it looks like the next year or two are going to be amazing growth years for SingularityNET in a whole bunch of ways.
That's awesome. I mean, we, I guess, first really kind of got our heads into kind of SingularityNET with the idea of this, decentralized AI marketplace, right? A one centralized place for people to be able to basically transact with AI, right? As you call them, agents on chain, which should be, quite remarkable. And obviously, I've been following what's been going on with Ethereum, this AI marketplace. And obviously what's going on with Cardano, 𝗕𝗪𝗀, all of that kind of good stuff. But yeah, you're right. The next few years, I think it's going to be really interesting for SingularityNET, and I cannot wait to see kind of how things unfold.
Yeah, I mean, the notion of the technological singularity from which SingularityNET drew its name is that technology are advancing at an exponential pace. So things are not just getting better, more complicated, more sophisticated, but they're doing so faster and faster. And part of what that means is technologies can now quite rapidly go from immaturity to a state of actually working and invading the whole world economy, right? Because my first foray into the business world was a company based in New York in the late 90s doing proto-AGI technology on Java 1.1, distributed among a bunch of Dell PCs, and everyone doing internet stuff back then. We saw what was coming with the internet, but it was a little too early. And then there was a dot-com crash, and then you wait a couple of decades, and suddenly everything that was foreseen in the late 90s happened, plus more. But I mean, the lag between seeing what the vision is and doing the first groundbreaking startups and things becoming mature enough to take over the world, the lag is like half a person's career, right? But now with the singularity, with things speeding up more and more, you can have something like a bunch of blockchain companies come out. They're a little bit ahead of the curve. The technology isn't quite good enough yet. You have a crash in a crypto winter, and then you have things resurge and actually start to work. But now this happens within a few years rather than 2 decades, right? So it's within the scope of a single project rather than taking most of someone's lifetime. And I think we're seeing exactly that, right? I mean, in 2017, you could see the promise of decentralized networks, but think our initial token cell almost couldn't go because of CryptoKitties like clogging up the whole Ethereum network, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, technology wasn't quite there. I mean, now it's much closer, and I think Ethereum 2 should be very cool. I've become more enamored of Cardano blockchain and the Plutus Haskell-based smart contract language, and I think Cardano I think is going to be fantastic. It's already fast and cheap compared to Ethereum, and we're already running Plutus smart contracts on the testnet. So with the rollout of fast, cheap, smart contracts in a very sophisticated programming language, I think that's one example of the whole blockchain ecosystem moving on to the next level. And that's going to let us more rapidly, realize a bunch of the visions we had for SingularityNET as an AI marketplace and AI network. But I mean, while I'm very pumped on Cardano and what we're going to do with SNet and Cardano together, I mean, I think from a bigger picture, like that's one example of what's happening across the space altogether, right? There's just a lot of faster, cheaper, easier to work with, more mature technologies coming out. And I think, the flourishing of blockchain utilization we're seeing with DeFi now, I mean, I think it makes sense that that's where to start, but that's just the beginning. We're going to see a lot more practical uses of these technologies in the next few years.
Yeah, it really is. And I was going to ask, obviously, you touched on Ethereum and Cardano briefly. What are your thoughts on other ecosystems or projects? Are you looking to go more multi-chain?
We're definitely going multi-chain in principle. I mean, we change our ticker symbol from AGI to AGIX, where the X, you can slot any blockchain in there, right? It can be AGI in Ethereum, AGI on Cardano. We've done a prototype on the NEM blockchain, actually. So, I mean, I think there's, honestly, many people don't realize this because they're just used to using Ethereum with the insanely high gas fees and slow transaction speeds, because that's where the dApps are now, right? But I mean, honestly, making a faster, cheaper blockchain is pretty much a solved problem now, right? I mean, there's a lot of faster, cheaper blockchains that are out there now. I mean, I have my own favorites, but it almost doesn't matter. The fast, cheap blockchain will become a commodity technology, right? And then the issue becomes other aspects of the blockchain. And I know it's hard to believe that when you're paying like $100 for a Uniswap transaction that takes 2 hours or something, right? But I mean, we're sort of it's just like, I remember helping my mom struggle with her Windows 7 and Windows 8 system. I'm like, wait a minute, but making an OS that actually works is a solved problem. Like I've been using
Yeah.
Linux since forever, but she's like, no, the programs I want are on Windows, so we have to use Windows 7. So it's same situation now, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people use Ethereum because it's more built out, but actually that's like dinosaur grade technology by now. Now, maybe they'll upgrade Ethereum so that it joins the club of fast, cheap, scalable blockchains, right? But I think that the Plutus smart contract framework in Cardano is more interesting and goes beyond just being a fast, cheap blockchain, because it gives you a sort of more flexible, usable, and secure tool for implementing blockchain-based applications. I mean, you can't say Solidity is intrinsically insecure, but you can say that it certainly gives developers a lot of rope to hang themselves with, right? Like in Solidity, it's easier to write an insecure than a secure application. And I'd say in Plutus, it's easier to write a secure than an insecure application. And that's probably the side of things that you want to be on. So I think that will be the real differentiator for Cardano, and that's less of a commodity thing than fast, cheap blockchains now. And that's really what interests me in terms of building out the next steps of SingularityNET. Because I mean, we want SingularityNET not just to be a marketplace for AI services. We want it to be like a primordial soup for AGI minds, where the AI services can connect with each other, cooperate with each other. Then you have some level of emergent intelligence coming out in the whole network. But to do that in a way that's secure and respects the privacy of the data used to train the AIs and so on, I mean, that requires some close interoperation of the AI and the blockchain layers.
Yeah.
And I mean, Charles Hoskin actually understands all this, because he's got a sort of hardcore math and computer science background also.
Yeah, I can imagine that the two of you in a room together, you can get a lot done.
We've had some pretty interesting conversations. Yeah. I mean, he's got a lot to manage these days with all the incredible growth of Cardano ecosystem, but it's a good problem to have.
Definitely.
Sure.
And, we often talk about specifically quite a few projects where the future is going, right? And interoperability, multi-chain, it's definitely up there, right? Because as you're right, ultimately there are an abundance of cheaper, faster blockchains, right? They're always coming out. There's always forks of different projects. And, Ethereum 2.0 obviously doesn't necessarily solve that many problems. It's a step in the right direction, but obviously it isn't all the way where it potentially needs to go. So yeah, I think interoperability is definitely something that many of the blockchains of the future will obviously have to hold.
Yeah, I mean, Ethereum 2.0, going back to the Windows analogy, they have the same problem Microsoft did, right? I mean, they're trying to make something new that's compatible with something old that's in many ways a mess and badly designed. And you can do that. It just takes longer and takes more work. I mean, I haven't used Windows in 15 years, but I noticed my mom doesn't ask me to fix her Windows system anymore. Like they seem to have improved a lot of things, right? So I mean, gradually you can make stuff better, even if you're stuck with backwards compatibility. But it may just be, it's so early in the evolution of blockchain systems that being saddled with backwards compatibility is sort of unnecessary, right? So, and I think, Cardano is a new start and is sort of architected in a way that's more friendly for AI applications. But on the other hand, I mean, modularity is a super important principle of software design, right? So I mean, we're just like you don't need to build your AI system in a way that depends on the quirks of the Linux operating system, even though it may run better on Linux than on Windows. I mean, with SingularityNET is a separate layer living on top of Cardano. And if there are other blockchains that are better for different purposes. SingularityNET should be able to be
Yeah.
multi-chain and run across all of them. I mean, I've been playing around in our sort of research lab on, can we make a specialized blockchain using the TODA protocol developed by my friends 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘 and 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗘. Can we make a specialized blockchain like just for really large scale AI microservices? Like say you want to take like 100 billion very small AI agents and have them operate in a way where they can create and destroy new AI agents many, many times each second. Right now, currently Cardano doesn't do that. It's fast and cheap, but it's not fast and cheap enough for that, right? Maybe they can evolve it there. Could we create a special blockchain that like next year could let us have this swarm of constantly creating and destroying AI agents? What's interesting is I think you could do that using TODA, but you could then have that singularity chain, right? You could have that interact with Cardano using the Hydra interface. But that's an example of how Cardano has thought things very well. Like their Hydra interface for interoperability, it actually gives you a way to like mathematically map the structures inside another blockchain into the structures inside Cardano, and that's so you have what in math would be called like an isomorphism from the side chain to the main chain. So that's I think that's going to be an asset for Cardano also. Like they have a better design for interoperability, and we'll see how that evolves across all the different chains. But yeah, I mean, it's quite possible you'll end up with many different blockchains that are sort of optimal for different purposes, though. And a network like SingularityNET has to work across all of them.
Yeah, that's definitely how I kind of see the future. I think running in silos just isn't really practical going further forward, right? You need to have this a way for everything to be more fluid between chains.
Yeah, but it could go a lot of ways. Like if you look at operating systems, I mean, even within Linux, there's different versions. Like you can have embedded Linux on a particular device, and you have Android, which builds on Linux on a phone, and then you have multiple different flavors of Linux on servers, but they're all using the Linux kernel, right? So I mean, there you have multiple versions which are interoperable. Yet there's a common kernel underlying them, so that could be a way to go too. I mean, it could be that Cardano can be the underlying kernel, and then you have many different things built on top of that. Like there's many things on top of the Linux kernel, or it could be like there's Cardano, there's Ethereum, there's Algorand, there's Solana, and you have interoperability among all those. Like I think that story is not told yet, right? What's clear is now everyone's application is bending over backwards in often bizarre ways to work around unnecessary costs and limitations posed by Ethereum infrastructure. And I think we'll be beyond that in the next couple of years. Like we can see that in SingularityDAO, the decentralized finance spinoff we did from SingularityNET. And I mean, now that I mean that's using machine learning and machine reasoning to deal with non-custodial management of baskets of altcoins. And I mean this is dealing with Uniswap and other DEXs that work with Ethereum, because that's where the tokens are being traded. But just the transactional cost and the time delay of doing finance on Ethereum is completely ridiculous.
That's cool. We actually just got off the call with Marcelo, Singularity DAO.
Oh yeah. So that's funny. Yeah, much.
Which is cool.
The thing is, we can do a lot with DeFi on Ethereum, but it's clear if you reduce cost and reduce time lag, I mean, there's an awful lot more. Because in traditional finance, there's a whole domain of algorithms that assume lower frictional cost and faster movement of money, right? And you can't use any of those things in the crypto world now, just because the infrastructure is clunky, right? But so seeing that go away in the next couple years, like when Tsingtao was trading baskets of Cardano native assets, for example, you won't have these speed and cost issues. That's going to up the level of intelligence you can use for AI-based asset management. Then, that improves the efficiency of the whole crypto economy, which in all sorts of ways, prepares better for more and more emergent intelligence coming out of the interaction of different processes. And so there's I think as the faster, cheaper blockchains take over more and more of the ecosystem, or as Ethereum becomes faster and cheaper concurrently, you're going to see that enabling a lot of different things. I mean, the NewNet project, which is another SingularityNET spinoff, I would say is a similar thing about, like, what NewNet does is that it lets you tokenize processing power, right? And so you processing power on your laptop or on your company's server farm or your phone or whatever it is. If you make that processing power available for, say, AI processes to come run on it, you can get NewNet tokens for that. And if it's a SingularityNet process, you might get AGI tokens for that also. Now, there have been a few projects like that in the blockchain universe before.
Yeah,
we've made an architecture that's especially suitable for letting AI processes run. I remember Golem was one of the early ones, and they were focusing initially on 3D graphics. I mean, Golem it's a good project, but I don't think it's customized as suitably for global distributed processing of AI as what we've done. But again, right now, due to frictional cost and just high gas fees and slow processing, you can do something like NewNet, but you're limited in how you can use it, right? Like, you have to give a phone a big batch of stuff to do because the cost of back and forth in the blockchain is high. Once you have a faster, cheaper blockchain, then you could have an AI process some like little bits of thinking to a bunch of different machines, and you're really getting more of a collective thinking process. So it's very much analogous to how, when I first went online on the proto-internet, I had 128 baud modem over my phone line. Then you got up to like 300 something baud is amazingly fast. And now you can be like in southern Ethiopia, you get 4G on your phone, right? And the speed has enabled all sorts of other things to happen, and we're right in the middle of that now in blockchain.
It's almost what you've been waiting for the right timing to kind of come along, for things to finally catch up with the theory to be actually be able to implement it correctly.
Yeah, if you look at what happened in AI, I mean, deep neural networks, like multi-layer neural nets, were invented in the 1960s by Frank Rosenblatt. Started a company of perceptrons trying to use deep neural networks. And but only once you had GPUs did you really have the firepower to train these algorithms at the scale that was needed to get good performance out of them. And I think for some of the more hardcore AI work that we're doing in SingularityNET's AI division, like we're building a new version of the OpenCog AGI engine called OpenCog Hyperon, and then a decentralized infrastructure for that to run on SingularityNET platform. But for that, I mean, until very recently, you get GPUs together with really fast, cheap CPUs together with a lot of RAM, and then soon the graph chips like GraphCore. Like we're just barely getting to the part where a bunch of these algorithms that we've been prototyping for decades can really work well. So you're putting together like faster, cheaper blockchain, smart contracts in a serious programming language like Haskell with hardware that allows neural symbolic AI systems like OpenCog to really work well. You're putting all these together, and that is the kind of thing that lets the exponential progress toward the singularity keep on rolling, right?
Yeah, and I was going to say one of the questions that we had was around OpenCog. There's lots of people that are really new to SingularityNET, crypto, the whole shebang. Could we just delve into what OpenCog is in a bit of detail?
Yeah, sure thing. So OpenCog, I mean, this is an open source AI project aimed at artificial general intelligence, meaning AI that can learn, generalize, and reason beyond its training data or its programming in a sort of imaginative, open-ended way, more like us humans can do at our best, right? And we founded the project in 2008. The oldest code goes back to maybe 2001 before we open sourced it all, and it's based on a neural symbolic methodology. It's not a neural net. It involves some neural nets, but it involves this knowledge graph with knowledge items linked to other knowledge items, or a knowledge metagraph in math terms, because a link can point to other links, or a link can point to whole subgraphs of the graph. So you have this big knowledge metagraph that can span RAM and disk on many different machines. Then you have a host of different AI algorithms that can act on this knowledge metagraph, including neural nets, but also logical reasoning engine, or what's called genetic programming that simulates evolution by natural selection to evolve new computer programs living in the knowledge graph. So we've been working on and experimenting with that for a while. There's some use of OpenCog in the AI system behind the 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗧𝗕 robot and the 𝗕𝗫𝗪𝗪𝗪 medical robot that we're working on now, which is like 𝗕𝗪𝗪's little sister. But we haven't managed to get the scale we need to really make OpenCog live up to its full vision of AGI. So now, taking the OpenCog knowledge metagraph, the knowledge graph, which we call the atom space, taking that and fragmenting it and distributing it across the SingularityNET in a decentralized way is one way to get to that scale, right? And then the NewNet project, one application there is to pull more and more processing power into doing all the different OpenCog AI algorithms against this distributed knowledge graph, right? So if you look at SingularityNET, it's a platform for allowing a bunch of AIs to communicate and cooperate, and it's kind of agnostic with regard to what AIs you put on there, right? So you can look at these tech stacks as having multiple layers. You got the blockchain, Cardano, say, at the bottom. You have SingularityNET, which runs on a blockchain and allows a population of AI agents to learn and reason and communicate and provide services. Then on top of SingularityNET, you have a bunch of specific AI agents. One could run a neural net. I mean, one could run an optimization algorithm. Some could run an OpenCog system. So SingularityNET, just as it could run on a variety of blockchains, it can also host a huge variety of AI algorithms. But still, we're making some AI algorithms ourselves to put on the platform. And then we're also, of course, inviting the community to put a whole bunch of their own AI algorithms in the platform. So SingularityNET could succeed even if OpenCog doesn't work. Like maybe some random 12-year-old hacker genius from Uzbekistan comes up with a magic algorithm of thought and, puts it on SingularityNET. It provides better services than everyone else, so it gets paid more AGI tokens, and then it learns and learns more. That could happen. On the other hand, if OpenCog, with its combination of neural, symbolic, and evolutionary methods, if that turns out to be the golden path to AGI, right, then SingularityNET is very conveniently serving as a decentralized infrastructure for it. And of course, it could be both. OpenCog could work great, and someone else's AGI algorithm can also work great. Then you have like a society of minds living in this decentralized mind network, which is also super cool.
No, that's really cool. I think that's that idea, that concept is something that really resonates. At least it does with me, and I think it resonates a lot with many people in the crypto space. Right, the idea of this artificial intelligence that's living on chain in a decentralized way, right? And obviously, it's not just one AI; it's potentially like hundreds of thousands, millions, if not billions, right, of different algorithms running out there.
Yeah, so this one subtlety is right now, almost none of the AI can actually be done on chain because it's just too slow, right? Like if you imagine if when one of your neurons fired a charge to another neuron in your brain that had to go through Ethereum network, you're not going to get much thinking done, right?
No.
Right. So what most of the AI processing goes off chain, but when you pay for an AI service that's on chain, when data is sent or results are sent, that's on chain. When some results are rated as good or bad or whatever, that's on chain. But one thing that can happen is we get faster and cheaper blockchains and more powerful smart programming, smart contracts. I mean, then we can put more and more of the AI on chain as well, right? And that's sort of what we've been looking at with specialized like Singularity chain add-ons to Cardano that are made for like large-scale AI microservices. Can you do more and more stuff on the blockchain itself by making like faster, cheaper blockchains that are more customized for AI? And I think we are going to see some of that.
So let's talk a little bit around machine learning, and maybe you can give the audience a kind of a brief explanation in simple terms of how machine learning works in line with artificial intelligence.
Yeah, machine learning is one of those strange terms that has changed meaning over a long period of time, I guess. Because I mean, in the broader sense, like all AI worthy of the name is machines learning, right? I mean,
Exactly.
AI is about machines that can learn, and then you could say machines that can develop as well as learning, where development means like gaining fundamentally new capabilities and even transforming yourself into new forms, right? So, but machine learning in the last decade or so, it's come to often have a more narrow connotation, which is referring to AI algorithms that are just mostly finding patterns in large data sets, right?
Mm.
But then the use of the term becomes ambiguous again because people are like, well, supervised machine learning, which is AI that learns from large data sets that are divided into categories or assigned labels or otherwise prepared to guide the AI's learning algorithm. Supervised machine learning isn't good enough, so let's do unsupervised learning. Let's do, deep reinforcement learning, which is where the AI is getting a reward signal from the environment periodically as it proceeds. And I mean, once you expand machine learning into unsupervised learning and deep reinforcement learning and so on, then it seems like machine learning is just becoming all of AI all over again, right? But you could say that the AI projects that are more likely to be given the label machine learning are the ones that are more focused on crunching big data sets and recognizing patterns in big data sets. I think historically, in the 70s and 80s, some people were building AI algorithms and systems where they were trying to bypass learning and just have people like type in all the knowledge that the AI should know, like cats are animals, grass is green. When you're inside, you're not outside. And so learning was a contrast to this like expert system engineering of AI systems. But that contrast is sort of irrelevant now because very few have been pursuing that expert system approach to AI for a long time.
There's a few other things we'd like to get into, but one of the questions that's not listed here, but is one that's always on my mind, is obviously moving over from Ethereum to Cardano. It's a huge task in itself, but I think it's really good to see because we talk about this all the time and how Ethereum, although it's up there as the second largest cryptocurrency, has potential problems. We always hear about it all the times in terms of scalability, security, or even the gas fees. That's the most common kind of issue that comes up. But the Cardano ecosystem, obviously being relatively fresh, smart contracts rolling out soon, and you guys actually porting over and moving over to the Cardano ecosystem is interesting. But the real thing for me is what do you leverage from Cardano, and what does Cardano leverage from SingularityNET?
Well, initially, I mean, we're building a new version of SingularityNET platform on top of Cardano, right? So I mean, initially, what's being leveraged there is the Plutus smart contract framework, and this lets you do more things in the smart contract language than it usually makes sense to do in Solidity. So, I mean, having a smart contract language, which is just a more robust and flexible programming language than Solidity, makes significant difference for us. And so we're using Cardano. We're building on top of Cardano now. In terms of the Cardano ecosystem, I would say SingularityNET is likely to be a big help to Cardano in building out their whole native assets component, right? Because the SingularityNET AGIX on Cardano token, I think that's going to be the first really big time native asset running on Cardano, where Cardano native asset is the analog of an ERC20 token in the Ethereum world. And then as we see other tokens roll out from the SingularityNET ecosystem, like a NewNet token, say, or a Rejuve token for the Rejuve AI biology project that's being built out on SingularityNET. As we see a NewNet or Rejuve token roll out on Cardano, I mean, we're bringing a bunch of pretty interesting native assets there. Now, I think where SingularityNET is going to end up sort of giving back to Cardano on the technical level will come into play more later in 2022, which is when we look at implementation of secure decentralized tools for machine learning and reasoning. So you have notions like multi-party computing, or homomorphic encryption, where so you say a pharmaceutical company has a bunch of medical data from patients on their server, and they don't want that data to leave their server, but they do want to analyze that data sort of in conjunction with the data from all the members of the Rejuve network, like a decentralized network of people who upload their own medical data. Then how can you crunch the data on the pharma company's server together with the data from all the Rejuve network members, which may be sitting on their phones or in some SingularityNET data containers, right? How do you have one machine learning process go across all the Rejuve network people's data and the pharmaceutical company's data, without the pharmaceutical company having to take the data off their server, and perhaps without the Rejuve network members giving full visibility into their medical data to the machine learning algorithm? Just let the machine learning algorithm see the aspects it needs to do its analysis process, right? So this bottoms out in what you call multi-party computing, where you can have multiple different machines, each having a different part of a data set. They cooperate in a whole machine learning process, where the parts of the machine learning process using the data on that machine happen on that machine, and the other machines never need to see the guts of somebody else's data. Now, how can you make multi-party computing work well with machine learning, machine reasoning, or OpenCog AI? So we've been discussing this a fair bit with some folks within 𝗖𝗢𝗠𝗘𝗥𝗦, the company that's been building a bunch of Cardano. And this is an example where SingularityNET is likely to build some tools for multi-party computing with machine learning algorithms and other complex algorithms, which are then open source tools that can be used by anyone in the Cardano ecosystem who wants to do complex algorithms in a way that respects data privacy. And the AI DSL project is another example of that. So we're developing a special language for AIs on SingularityNET to use to communicate to each other what their properties are, like what kind of problems they can solve, how much resources they're using, what reliability they'll have in different cases. And so for the AIs and SingularityNET to have this language to communicate with each other will help the AIs and SingularityNET to self-assemble into sort of collectives that can solve problems. So that, say, to summarize a book or something, one AI that can summarize pictures, one AI that can translate languages, one AI that knows about medicine, one AI that's good at summarizing general text. They could all cooperate together to summarize that document, but they can mediate their own cooperation directly with each other by leveraging their own descriptions in the AI DSL, the AI description language. But the thing is, this language, while we're developing it for the AI processes in Singularity Network to describe what they're doing to each other, actually it could be used for any software process. So you may find just any algorithm, any software agent running on Cardano could use the same description language, and then suddenly you have a situation where all the software running on Cardano becomes semantically savvy and can communicate what it does to the other software that's running on there. And this sort of thing is easier to do in Cardano than in Solidity because we have more flexibility in Haskell to integrate this special AI description language into the smart contracts.
That sounds absolutely epic.
There's a lot of stuff going on, man. So boiling it down in simple language is a big challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine. I guess another question that I've got is just what are your thoughts on I guess the role of AI in DeFi?
Yeah, I mean, certainly AI is all over in traditional finance now. I mean, it's not obscure anymore. Like every major bank or fund has a bunch of machine learning and natural language processing guys. And so, I mean, DeFi obviously has got to be the same way. As DeFi ecosystem matures, you're going to see AI, quantitative algorithmics everywhere. I think that the crypto ecosystem may be a driver toward more and more generally intelligent financial AI because the crypto markets are what you'd call highly non-stationary. Like they're moving into a different regime every 6 months, and historical dynamical patterns are poor predictors of future dynamical patterns just because the whole ecosystem is evolving so rapidly. So what it means is more simplistic number crunching methods won't get you very far. You really need methods that can generalize beyond their training data in a somewhat imaginative way, because, I mean, take like German stock market, about the same now as 30 or 40 years ago, really about the same as 5 years ago. So you get a long historical time series, whereas crypto markets are very different than 30 or 40 years ago, right? And even five years ago is like multiple historical epochs ago, right?
Yeah.
But the other area where I would like to see AI play a role, though it isn't much, is cybersecurity, right? I mean, we should have robust like simulation models of the crypto markets. Then we should have AIs doing reasoning and learning about like what kinds of economic attacks may happen against this or that DeFi project. I mean, clearly the real situation is very far short of that, right? And what you have is huge hacks just exploiting basically insufficiently careful Solidity programming, right? So I mean, I think Cardano can help a lot with that, because in Haskell, due to the nature of the Haskell language being a purely functional language, it's much more feasible you can basically do a mathematical proof that your program obeys the spec it was supposed to obey. And this is why functional programming languages like Haskell and OCaml are now commonly used in Wall Street, right? Because you're passing like $1 trillion through some bit of code. it's great if you can formally verify that code does what it's supposed to do, right? So, I mean, Cardano formally verified the 𝗕𝗃𝗀𝗃𝗪𝗧 consensus protocol, but you can also, you can formally verify that your Plutus smart contract does what it's supposed to do. I mean, there's also a DSL created within Cardano ecosystem called Marlowe, which is just like simplified smart contract language just for financial transactions, and automatically checking that your Marlowe program did what it's supposed to do is much easier. So what you can see is through the combination of automatic code verification, which comes along with using better smart contract languages, and simulation models of the crypto ecosystem and machine learning, right? Putting all those together, where the machine learning algorithm is sort of learning how to use the simulations, right? I mean, putting all these things together, you could make a much more robust ecosystem. I mean, to make it concrete, so imagine you have the AI try to learn how to hack into your system, right? So you make an army of like a million AI hackers trying to use every AI algorithm to figure out how to hack into the simulation of your system, and this could make it far more robust than what we're seeing now, and that could make the DeFi ecosystem much more robust than the traditional finance ecosystem, for that matter, which is not exactly the case at the moment.
No, we've seen a few hacks recently, haven't we? So
yeah, far too many hacks have been going on, or rug pulls and all various different kind of scams.
Well, rug pulls, I don't know if AI can defend against that, because the thing is, you don't need an AI to tell that a project is a likely scam. It's very obvious, and I mean, people will invest in it. I mean, they'll buy the tokens anyway. So people come out like, okay, I wrote this project, I wrote this code in the last 2 days. The code is totally unaudited, and I named it after my favorite beer. Now, please put $100 billion into it. People are like, yeah, okay, what could possibly go wrong, right? Solving that problem with AI may be overkill, right?
For sure. Just wanted to get your thoughts on how far sort of AI has come, and I guess just a question around, do you think the general public think we're ahead of where we are actually in terms of AI technology?
I think the general public thinks we're both ahead and behind, actually. The general public just has little idea what's going on. So, I mean, I saw with the 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗧𝗧 robot when I was working on that, half the people assumed she was already a human level AGI and was thinking and reasoning through everything she said. Then a lot of people thought she was just a scripted chatbot with no intelligence at all, and the reality was like halfway in between the two, right? And so I think, people can think machines with human-like behavior are more intelligent than they are, and I could fall into that sometimes. Like you call some phone number to get some broken appliance fixed, and some chatbot is talking back to you, and it's like, do you want this? I'm like, no, fuck you, you stupid computer. It's like, wait a minute, this chatbot doesn't care that I just yelled at it, right? It has no intelligence or understanding whatsoever, and I know that. So why am I implicitly assuming it has some agency or intelligence or emotional response? So we sort of can't help but like attribute more intelligence to something than it really has if it impersonates a human with intelligence. On the other hand, AI is like underlying supply chain management. AI is underlying fund management. There's AI like diagnostic neural networks on firmware inside modern cars, right? So I mean, there's AI showing which Facebook friends have their posts pop up in your feed. So I think there's more ambient AI all over the place guiding people's lives than most people realize. But so people are biased to over-ascribe intelligence to things that seem like humans, and then to not see the intelligence that's been wired inside things in a less human-like way. And I mean, if you're into democracy and participatory decision making, it's a bit disturbing that technology is developing very fast and very interestingly, and the average people are quite clueless about what's real and what isn't, and what's really evolving fast and what's hitting dead ends. Like people think one thing, and then actual development is a completely different set of things. And blockchain is much like that too. I mean, the whole crypto community, 99% are like degens focused on whether this or that token will go up or down in price, which if you put all your life savings into it is highly meaningful. That's a thing. On the other hand, the real story is building the tools to progressively decentralize like the back end of the world economy, which will create a much more robust global infrastructure that no government or corporation could take over, right? Like the real deal is like when our team or some other team makes a breakthrough to general intelligence, we have machines smarter than people, like can a government or corporation turn that thing off or turn it to their own ends, or is it implemented everywhere and nowhere, controlled by everyone in the world who has a computer, right? I mean, that's quite important, right? Like who owns and controls the singularity. But instead, most people involved in crypto don't think about that. They're following what essentially are random collective dynamic processes of a market, right? But I mean that's humanity, right? I mean I think it may be more explicit to see in communities that are mostly online and make a lot of noise, but I think this is just human nature.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people in the space following lagging trends, whether that's community-based trends or the financial
and
trends.
Looking at things on the wrong time scale, right? Like people in our community ask me like, why did this token price go down yesterday? I mean, that's like asking why was it 73 degrees yesterday and 78 degrees tomorrow or something. I mean, they're complex self-organizing processes which are largely chaotic. The short-term fluctuations you can't predict. So it's like with global warming. Global warming is real. It's getting warmer and warmer. It's largely caused by human activity. On the other hand, if it's 90 degrees today and 80 degrees yesterday, that doesn't mean you can say like global warming made it come up to 90 degrees today, right? I mean, there's random stuff on the smaller time scale, even though there's really important trends on the larger time scale. But people like to watch the little ups and downs and ascribe way too much meaning to them, right? Which is
for sure. We see this just in viewer numbers, like over a particular week or a month, depending on what the market's doing. It's quite remarkable. So yeah, it's interesting, and we try to take a view of finding projects that we feel demonstrate that they're undervalued with great tech that are looking to change the world.
It's the same thing in .com era, right? You remember in 2000, everyone was making fun of like petfood.com, or I knew people who raised maybe $50 million in around the year 2000, which was a lot of money then, right? For justballs.com website. It was originally called mywifehasballs.com. They changed the title, but I mean, just we're going to sell all kinds of balls online, soccer balls, golf balls, right? And so there's a lot of bullshit, and most people were just engaged with stock price speculation. But I mean, in the end, among all the bullshit, the foundations for the internet were being laid, right? And obviously we got the same thing in blockchain and AI spaces now. I mean, there's a lot of nonsense and misunderstanding, but on the other hand, the foundations for some like genuine technical and human revolutions are being laid.
Yeah, it's literally like I quite often say it on the show that we're watching history unfold in front of our eyes, with onboarding of people that don't currently have an identification, access to finance, and I think there's going to be an awful lot of good done in the world, and I think I feel fortunate to be part of that. I think it's amazing.
Well, the thing to remember is decentralization is not good or bad, right? I mean, just like almost any other technology could be used to make things better or worse. So, I mean, decentralization opens up the possibility for things to be done in a very beneficial way. It also opens up the possibility for things to be done in an even worse way than what the centralized systems are doing, right? So I think that the door is still pretty wide open, and we're at a point now where we can guide whether decentralized makes things better or worse. Like in the domain of government, for example, the government of Somalia is heavily decentralized, which bottoms out in a bunch of bands of armed mercenaries going around shooting everyone. And I'd rather have a centralized government than that, right? So yeah, we and certainly DeFi space is not yet ready to replace the conventional banking system with all the hacks and rug pulls. Like I'm happy there's a bank to put a little bit of savings in that is not susceptible to a rug pull by the founders of the bank, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm in, but I think we're definitely getting there. But there's a lot of bullets to be dodged, right? On the one hand, you have to dodge the propensity of members of the community to lie, cheat, steal, and rip each other off. On the other hand, you have to dodge the propensities of the regulators to shut everything down and just let big companies and the super wealthy run everything, right? So if all that can be dodged, then there's a potential for quite revolutionary things.
For sure.
Absolutely. So those are the kind of the questions. I know we've darted a bit all over the place, that we had kind of scoped out for you guys. But is there anything that you want to leave the audience with today? Like something that maybe you're working on that you want to kind of just communicate across to the guys?
SingularityNET, the big thing happening this fall is the release of AGI token on Cardano platform. We'll have a two-way converter between AGI Ethereum and AGI Cardano. And then a few months after that, we'll have the whole SingularityNET platform and marketplace on Cardano, and we're really looking forward to that. The Cardano version of the marketplace, I think, due to being faster and cheaper and more flexible, we should be able to use that to drive growth of the marketplace, get more customers, and massive adoption, and massive then token utilization of the AGI token and all that. So then we're also looking at releasing what we're thinking of as layer 2 on top of SingularityNET, and SingularityDAO was the first one of these, which has its own tokenomic infrastructure, but it is using SingularityNET AI to do the AI prediction and portfolio management and so forth. So SingularityDAO token is also out there, and there's a whole bunch going on there. Then I think NewNet is the next SingularityNET sort of layer 2 spinoff project to keep an eye out for, and there's going to be a bunch of interesting announcements regarding NewNet and NewNet token to watch for soon. You can look for some demos of what the NewNet network can do, or already out there using NewNet for decentralized fake news warning, just as a showcase of the product. But of course, it's far more general than that, allowing sort of decentralized hardware for all sorts of AI. But there's going to be a whole bunch more. So yeah, go look at SingularityNET.io. You can sign up there for our newsletter and see our YouTube and Telegram and various communication channels, because there's going to be a incredible number of things rolled out in the next 6 months on SingularityNET.
Super. And we caught up with Marcello from Singularity DAO, so do check out that interview that we did.
Marcello.
This is
Italian. Come on.
awful with pronunciations.
I know, terrible. I am terrible. I always get told off.
Right, well, really appreciate you spending the time with us this evening to kind of, your morning, our evening, to go through everything, SingularityNET and all the fantastic things that you've got coming up in the very near future. We'll have to have you back on the show once you get a few things across the lines regarding progress.
We should do this again once we have the platform on on Cardano actually. And, you can do a Cardano sort of retrospective and prospective thing, because I think we're going to see a bunch more projects follow us on the Cardano network, which will give a lot of new opportunities for interoperation of different blockchain projects on that network. So a lot of cool stuff to talk about next time. But yeah, thanks for having me today.
And so, guys, that was Dr. Ben Goertzel from SingularityNET. Hopefully you found this as insightful as I did. If you have, hit the like button. I really do appreciate that. Chris really appreciates that. And I like to think that even Ben would also appreciate it. If you are new to the channel and you'd like to stay up to date with everything, make sure you do subscribe, tap the bell, select all notifications. In doing so, you'll never miss another video or live stream here at Cheeky Crypto. In the links in the description below, go check out SingularityNET's YouTube channel and website. And lots of great insights to be found there as well. Guys, with all this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has had a fantastic day, and we'll catch you all in the next one.